the notification.
Live stream.
You guys know the deal. You're professionals. You know how we roll here. So I'll do a brief intro, throw it over to Bear to start the convo. And yeah, just looking forward to hearing all about this course and everything you guys are up to.
Rock and roll.
Okay.
So, Mike, is my sound okay?
Yeah, your sound's okay, but your video is out of whack again. It's all your camera's looking for.
Let me try this.
Stuff on your ceiling.
I'll be right back if I lose you. Let's just see.
Hey, what's up? Don Lester's in the house. Hey, Don, nice to see you. Can't wait to see you in Texas shortly here, along with Mr. Bigelsen, of course.
Picture any different now, Mike?
The Apostle Mark here, coming to you. Yeah, no, it's frozen a bit. It seemed frozen. Seemed like it was better before. It was yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
You'll
you're
lose
good.
me for a second.
Okay.
Good. Okay. If I freeze up, I'll switch off again. But
Okay.
anyway, I'm sure people want to hear all about my internet. Why don't we talk about something else?
Okay, guys. Well, hey, so blessed to have the Bigelsen brothers back on with us. Always some of our favorite guests that we've had. Was this, I think this is the third Alpha Cast we're doing with you guys, I believe. Pretty awesome.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
I remember two others. Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
and
guys.
we're honored to have Josh at the farm here.
So blessed to have the Bigelsen brothers back on with us.
That's an echo.
That's wouldn't be Alpha Cast without the echo.
Delay
Got
Bear.
it handled.
Okay.
Yeah, it was me. This is authentic home brewed podcasting.
Yes. With the mosquito. in
So
front
Bear's
of
been
us.
having some issues with Musklink of late. It seems like he's been spending too much time in Doge and not enough keeping his technology working. So you'll have to pardon the rough connection he has. It seems like they've run out of helium. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Great.
I need to reach out to the Don.
Okay, I'm gonna hit record and we'll fire this up. Here we go. Let me just switch it. Okay, here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of AlphaCast. I'm Mike Winner, and I'm here as always with the dawn of the terrain empire here, Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live and direct from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom reigns supreme up here on the Smith River. We've had some glorious sunny days, and it looks like we're getting some rain the next couple of days, Bear. So I'll take it. The garden will enjoy it.
Yeah, it's clouding up. We're planting fruit trees. We brought a bunch back from our trip in Southern California. We have, since we're commercial nursery people, we still have accounts down there. So we came back with amazing amount of fruit trees and bushes and stuff. So we're going to plant more stuff on the farm here.
Fantastic. Yeah. I've been composting and mulching and building new beds, and we're going to grow a ton of food this year. Shannon's been on it, our greenhouse, and I've heard yours too. It's just looking like a commercial nursery with all the starts we have. So I love this time of year.
Hundreds of herb starts, ashwagandha, astragalus, ashataba, all sorts of good stuff.
Fantastic. And you were saying we're blessed today to have the Bigelsen brothers back on. You were saying that we were honored to have Josh visit the farm. Was that last year?
Yes, he was the honorary first and only guest on Porch Talk. And we will have a few more episodes this summer. The porch is pretty wet out there, you know, the rest of the year. So we'll resume now that the weather's good. And Adam, you might be here someday soon. I hear there's a rumor out there. And
Yes.
we have some Anastasia folks that are going to be honoring us with their group. And yeah, it's going to, we have a first farm tour, I think in June. Deb's been scheduling that with some other people. So we'll put that up on our membership site and tell you all about it. It's going to be everything on what an off-grid system looks like, what it's like to live this way. And it's going to be open to all Alfa Vedic members that live in the greater Pacific Northwest here. We hope to see you, Josh. I hear that you might be in close proximity as well here these days.
Yeah,
I
I've been
won't
up, I've been up
divulge
in
the
Florence for a
exact
few weeks now.
location. Oh, well, you just did it.
Don't tell them.
Central coast of Oregon right now. So yeah, I'm not far away from you guys. I'll have to come down and bother you again one of these days.
Okay, well, now that we have your location, we're beaming right in on you there, and you're
Awesome.
officially targeted.
Awesome.
Bring it on.
I am my father's son.
That's
Nice.
a beautiful area. The Oregon coast is stunning, and one of my favorite places. So that's pretty awesome, man. Good for you. You may have to take up surfing, my friend.
Those waves haven't looked very inviting yet.
Yeah, you just got to find the right spot, the right wetsuit, and watch out for sharks. But it's a good time. Well,
Awesome.
hey guys, I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with y'all. I just titled this "The New Paradigm of Healing" today, and I really believe it's nothing new, right? We're not talking about anything new, but for a lot of the conventional systems out there, this is brand new. So we're bringing the old back to to our community, but also always, as Bear and I are always apt to say, it's like we're always progressive though in our innovations and taking those old classical traditions and innovating them with our consciousness and with our drive to be better as humans. And so I'm excited to jump into this today. And if somebody's got, if you guys could mute when you're not talking, I'm hearing traffic in the background. I think that's probably your busy
Adam.
Mexico streets, Adam.
Yep.
I'm
Can do.
hearing a fruit vendor hawking his wares outside your door.
Or,
Yeah,
or,
definitely.
or Josh forgot to turn his Harley off in the garage there.
I had to be
Yeah.
the neighbor.
Just revving his Harley in his garage for you. Nice.
Well, war is waged in all manner of atrocity, but the ruthless attack on our personal biology is the most sinister of all. Your mind is the initial target, as only willing participants will allow the multifaceted exposure to poisons and practices eventuating in one's physical demise. If you're not already on a path of self-directed health awareness, you'll be uninformed, but any engagement with the pharmaceutical hypnosis industry will leave you woefully misinformed. The Alfa Vedic platform came to full fruition during the 2020 worldwide theater due to Dr. Lando's decades of experience in managing chronic degenerative illness in accord with the fundamental axiom, treat the patient, not the disease. Quote, instead of looking at a sick person as a set of symptoms and an illness as an isolated event, we must institute a new paradigm that treats each patient as an individual and searches for root causes in the terrain, the whole living human body. That's from Adam and Josh Bigelson here. On this episode, our good friends, the Bigelsen brothers, founders of the Bigelsen Academy, bring their own decades of learning through observation of what constitutes health and why it eludes so many. The Bigelsons have developed a course based on their father's book entitled Doctors Are More Harmful Than Germs, and some 40 years of experience in their clinics with patients. Adam, show that book. Say a word so you pop up on the screen.
Gotta unmute now.
Oh, yeah.
Doctors Are More Harmful Than Germs is a great book. You guys can see this one. And it's how surgery can be hazardous to your health and what to do about it.
And is that available on all the good book retailers outlets?
Yep, it is. You can find it out there. It's on our website. You can get it through us. It's the one we didn't self-publish, so you got to do the Amazons and things like that.
Got it. Yeah, definitely best to go through you guys directly. Have you had any Chinese, you're making it when you've got China, black market versions out there.
Yeah, Josh, we had one in Korean, didn't we?
There's a Korean version of the book out there. We don't know where that came from, but we're flattered. We're absolutely flattered by that.
Nice, nice.
More or less, yes.
Well, this book talks about the hidden side of healthcare, as Adam said, the idea that surgery can be hazardous to your health and how to avoid it as an important theme in the book. This course that actually in the show notes below too, we have a link to it. The course highlights how Western medicine has become more disease management than anything else. You understand very clearly how most common medical practices are actually the cause of many chronic long-term health problems. They will discuss the idea that effective medical therapy must allow the body to go through a true process of healing and not simply suppress the symptoms that serve as warning flags. This is very in alignment with everything we talk about, Bear. Go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Yeah, the newsletter that we sent out for this episode, I originally entitled Breaking the Spell of Disease or something like that. And I riffed off of what you were talking about in Anarchapulco there, Adam. It's about, and, disease really is a spell. And, we'll get into what that really means. But always a pleasure to have both of you gentlemen. Definitely old home week whenever we get together. And, the work that you're putting out there is so important, not only because it represents your father's work and that generation, which I am proud to be one of the living relics from that generation. There's just so much wisdom that, went before this present day age of what do we call it, naturopathy and standardized alternative medicine, we'll call it. So, you guys are really keeping alive a lot of the true seminal work from old world, but then, carrying it forward with, modern tech and new insights and new people. So, things are supposed to always get better. We don't want to live in the past, but we don't want to forget it either. So maybe we could start off by either one of you just introducing the course. I was honored to be on, just a fly on the wall in your last course there that was about isopathy and related subjects. And great, you guys are just always putting out fantastic work. So I'm looking forward to your next course. So why don't you tell our folks about it?
All right, can do. Josh, I'm jumping in. So raise your hand, interrupt whenever you need to, like you do my brother. Yes. So this course, I like this course a lot. Dad's first book, the Holographic Blood book, talks about the foundation of the work, where it came from. It gives you a really good overview. I think it's one of the, and not to say because it's my dad's book, is one of the better terrain primers out there as far as books are concerned. This one is interesting because this one's more in Dad's voice. And what did we have, Josh, with them, the ghostwriter or the editor or something in the first one? And you could hear things were a little different there, but this one's Dad's voice. And I want to read just this first paragraph from chapter 1, an invitation.
Great first paragraph. Sorry.
Yeah. This is a picture of my dad right now, guys, right? Our father. Well, Mrs. So-and-so, says Dr. Almighty, since you are 50 years old and reaching menopause, you don't need your uterus anymore. In fact, it's probably getting in the way. Since we'll be in there, we may as well take out your appendix because you don't need that either. And taking it out will prevent future appendicitis. Most older women have gallbladder problems, so let's take that out too, for prevention. Oh, and one of my friends is a plastic surgeon. While you're asleep and can't feel anything, he can do a tummy tuck and smooth out some of your wrinkles with Botox. Don't worry, it's very, very poisonous, but we'll just use it on your wrinkles. No big deal. All right, this one you get to hear Dad's sense of humor, sounds fabulous, doesn't it? One-stop surgery, magically taking care of everything that could possibly affect you over the next 10 years. Take your body, cut it up, slice it up, and redo it better than ever. Recently, Dad says this is funny, I was reading in the In-Flight magazine on the way to New York. A story listed the best doctors in New York City. The top 3 specialties: hair transplants, liposuctions, and Botox injections. All cosmetic surgeons. This is what they call good medicine. I call it barbaric cosmetology. All right, so yeah, this one's fun. It gets more into These are things we've known as far as Western medicine is not necessarily there to help us. It's disease management. It's not healthcare. When the head of the medical board, when they brought up dad on charges of curing someone illegally, we know that they don't care if the person got better. And the head of the medical board said that to our father. So this book kind of points out some of the irony. But the reality is this, the little things, scars. I never realized they have to cut through 21 layers of things just to get to what they want to get to cut something out. That's a problem for the body. The dam that they create just by cutting into you is crazy. And this is also one of those things when you read this, as people are learning to take care of their own health care, that's part of our deal here. Have you had your scars addressed, right? Little things like that. So this book, I think this one's fun. Josh, this one compared to the other book, what do you think, difference-wise?
Well, there's a lot of crossover in them. I think the best thing about this book is, he'll talk about doctors and kind of what they've done, but the book provides solutions. Because, you know me, Adam, I'm tired of people yelling and screaming about what the problem is without having any solutions whatsoever. So that is a huge part of this book. So that's the bottom of that book. The doctors are more harmful than germs, but it says how surgery can be hazardous to your health and what to do about it. So that is the key in this book. A lot of us, know that the medical establishment, traditional medicine and alternative medicine to a big degree these days, aren't really understanding how health actually works. And a lot of times they're doing more damage than they're actually doing good. But there's always something you can be done about it. So this book provides a lot of hope. There's a lot of stories in there about, where the medical establishment has gone wrong, but that's really not the message behind this book. The message behind this book is there are things that you can do about it, and that's what's great about this course, I think.
Yeah, and it's nice too, guys. One thing that's surprising as I read these books again, you guys have heard us talk about this, as kids, Dad would chase us around the house with his damn books. Read my next chapter? Can you read the chapter? I'm tired of reading your chapters, Dad. We grew up with this stuff. We heard him talk about it over and over, so sure, we'll read the damn book. These days, we're reading the book. And there's things in there we hadn't heard before, we didn't really pay attention to.
I've probably read that book 20 plus times, and every time I read it, it's like, oh, I don't remember him saying that. I've literally read this book. I mean, I read every chapter 10 times when he was doing the book, and then since we've been doing our course, literally, I've read this book so many times, it's ridiculous. And still, every time I read it, it's like, oh, I forgot about that, so it's just one of those books. Both of his books are like that. They're not long, they're easy to read, but you're always picking up on new insights in there, which is pretty awesome.
Well, and the one thing I'll tell you guys real quick too is I was surprised at how much Dad supports Western medicine in this book. Basically he's telling you the trauma surgeons are awesome. If you're falling apart, they put you back together. It's when they start to think, oh, let's do some exploratory surgery, and then things get a little weird.
That's the only aspect of traditional medicine he really supports is the trauma care. And that's because he was a trauma surgeon himself in Vietnam. So he kind of saw, when the body comes in front of you, you don't have time to think about it. You don't have time to think about your greens fees or your payments on your Mercedes or how much money you're going to make. Then you're going to do a different job than if you've got time to think about those things. So he loved the trauma surgeons. He said, after you get out of that trauma stage, get the hell out of their hands because they have no idea what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, that's how I cut my teeth. Early on in my career, I was in emergency services and totally legit. And we did good things. The only problem is, of course, is that people equate all of modern medicine with urgency care and or crisis intervention. And it's a great selling point. And so, indelibly in our consciousness is that medicine is about keeping you in your body. And even if it's with Botox injections, I just put a little quote in our chat here. It says, "My God, are they barbarians?" And this was a quote by Dr. McCoy in Star Trek IV when they were beamed down to present-day Earth and trying to rescue one of their people from a hospital. And he's looking at this medical cart with saws and drills and everything. So I think your dad probably really loved that movie as well.
That's hilarious. Awesome. Yay, Star Trek. They knew things, these are those hidden nuggets of wisdom, those seeds that are out there, right?
Well, we watch an old mystery show that takes place in the early 1900s, and one of the murder cases was death by botulism. The person intentionally gave the person botulism. So here we are 100 years later, and that's a treatment for people.
Yeah.
How far
It's
we've come.
I think that's what's fun about Dad's book too, is he talks about things like that. There's something really interesting. Dad was very curious about history and seeing the patterns historically. And it's funny because we've got, our stuff, people said to us once, you should call it future medicine. It's like, oh, future medicine based on old philosophies. We talked about this, the new German medicine based on old German philosophies. It's kind of interesting.
Old Eastern philosophy.
Old Eastern philosophies.
Yeah.
Future medicine might make us more money. We're future medicine, but it's really interesting how much Dad pointed to the past as far as what we knew. At this point, our great-grandparents knew how to take care of themselves. Some of our grandparents, if they're still around, did too. That's our grandparents and great-grandparents didn't have time to get sick. They had to work. They had to get the food on the table. It was a different experience. Grandma with the chicken soup and love and things like that. So we have come pretty far away from that. What's nice these days, though, is I think that, as Josh and I are getting out there more and more, people are ready to hear what they need to do for themselves, which is great. There's still a lot of people that are looking for things to fix them. And it's interesting too, because we talk about like the homotoxicology chart, and there's this part in here, forget those of you guys that don't know, I assume your community knows a little bit about homotoxicology.
We've talked about it, but we got new viewers all the time. So why don't you give us a synopsis?
Sure. And I do want to say, I appreciate your community.
Yeah.
It's neat, as Josh and I are out there, Josh will post things and then he dumps and runs. He's not going to look at comments, which is a good thing. I'll look at some comments.
Very
Mike,
wise.
Yeah. And Mike, it's like, oh, here comes a text. Mike is sucking me into the conversation. Uh-oh. But it's nice because as I'm a part of a conversation and I put my 2 cents into the Alfa Vedic chat experience, the reception is different than other groups. So this is kind of like a shout out to you. What do you guys call your followers? Your Alfa Vedicans?
Yeah, AB fam. AB fam.
Is there a name there?
Yeah,
Right.
family's good. We don't want to sound like a cult of
The Vaticans, Alpha Vaticans. But I think you guys,
Alpha Vaticans. I kind of like that one.
you guys have a nice community, and it's also as I do consultations with people, Josh does the blood, Fiona will explain the consultation, then people are on with me so I can give as much guidance, support, motivation, encouragement. I'm the cheerleader, basically. And when I first asked 2 questions, where are you
I
located?
bet you look cute in your uniform too.
Yeah, you have no idea. Sign up and find out. But as I do ask the 2 questions initially, one is where are you located, and the second is how did you hear about us? I want to know the path that people have taken to find out about us. And the people that say they're from Alfa Vedic, for me it's like, oh, yay. There's a foundation there. I don't have to explain everything from the very beginning. So extra points for you guys, your community, you guys in the family. I appreciate you guys. So
Well, it's a positive community, which is nice, and they're looking, to hold themselves accountable in a lot of ways, So when I look at history forums, when I do a consultation, I look at who they're referred by, and sometimes it's like, yeah, and sometimes it's like, oh shit. So we see Alfa Vedic on there, Bear, Mike Winter, and it's like, all right, we're preaching to the choir in a lot of ways, and they're going to hold themselves accountable too, which is really nice.
Well, and food for thought then, homotoxicology, it's something that is important. Dad talked about the 3 divine philosophies, osteopathy, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and originally he said homeopathy and changed it to homotoxicology, both having to do with the patterns and progressions of disease. Okay. So with this book, it's nice because the first stage of homotoxicology, a toxin enters the body and the body wants to excrete. All right. This is normal. This is your diarrheas, your vomiting, your sweating, the coughing, coughing, farting, sweating, crying, salivating, urinating, things like this, even heartburn. And then the question is, what do you do about it? So this book, he starts to talk about this. The first stage is normal. So what do? You provide comfort. Don't screw around, And what did we do as kids? Cough drops, cough syrup, let's suppress the cough, which is trying to get stuff out. Diarrhea, let that crap out, literally, right? Inflammation is the second stage. So if the toxin can't get out through the elimination experience, then you get inflammation. These are your fevers, all right? Abscesses, headaches, yeast infections, things like that. Anything itis, all right? Peritonitis, endocarditis, gastritis. And then the question is, what do you do about it? Josh and I talk about this a lot. Inflammation, guys, is how we heal. So anti-inflammatory is not the deal, all right? If the inflammation becomes trapped, then we become inflamed and we have an issue. But as far as resolving this, when you've got inflammation, it's self-resolving illness. Observe and support the process. So don't stop the fever. Let things go. And guys, as humans, we can get through our moments. So, it's not comfortable to have some of these things going on. But once we start to get involved and suppress, now we've got issues. And Western medicine is all suppression.
It's the fear that gets you. If you don't go into fear and just have a trust in your body, it always resolves itself. Unless you do something stupid like go to the doctor.
Well, and it's interesting, Barrett, because I've talked to people, that Josh and I know, we know people. And it's interesting because even some of the top people that are involved in talking about these things, they're family members, something happens, and they get freaked out and they go to the hospital. So the fear is a big one for sure. It's also the question of understanding. I liked when Mike Kaufman did that one presentation at Acapulco last year about why you need to go to the hospital. Like if you've got a cut, it's one thing. If you've got a cut that's pulsating blood, then you got to go to the hospital. But it's such an interesting default for so many of us. Hospital, antibiotics, And this is an important one too, guys, trusting this process. It's not a quick fix with the terrain experience. It's taken you so long to get to where you're at. You don't just take something and it goes away. You don't just use a device and then things have changed. But what Dad said in the book is,
Adam, there's a fundamental philosophical gap here in the West too about suffering and us trying to avoid all suffering and not knowing what the cause of suffering is. Well, if you go back to the great Plato or all these great Eastern traditions, Buddha, Hinduism, the cause of suffering is ignorance and not knowing the self or the not self. So literally it's a endless cycle here, right? In the West, especially perpetuating the suffering out of not knowing what the cause is.
Right. And that's part of my job as I work with people. It's just hold the fort, relax, breathe through it. And go ahead, Bear, what were you going to say to add to that?
I was just going to riff off Mike one more step, which is we are not here to suffer. And all suffering is self-inflicted. And like you say, it's through ignorance. So that's what we're all about, is just trying to get people to align themselves with the natural design of their body. And, it may not be a quick fix, what you're talking about, as far as riding out some temporary symptoms. But if you manage cases of people that come in with these chronic degenerative issues, and they've been hooked up to, chemo and all this kind of stuff, and they're walking death. I mean, talk about suffering. So, pay now or pay later. And when you pay later, it's always a lot worse.
Some of my greatest insights in my life have come with intense fevers.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
This is where Anna's kid, she's got the two, one's bigger than the other, and the small one, he gets a fever and he grows. It's a chemical reaction. Something's changing. We know heat changes water to steam. What's going on in the body? Don't stop it. It's so intelligent. And it's funny because the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. That was fun, Bear. We had you on with our discussion, the behind the scenes discussion with Artur Sala and things. We want to connect the dots. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys in the family here before. It was fun. We're going to connect dots, I want to know symbionts, exosomes, stem cells, how do these things, what comes first? How does it happen? And trying to connect dots, and then we all have our thoughts, and then Bear comes in and it's like, well, the dots are everywhere, and it doesn't go that way. It can go one of many different ways depending on what's going on, right? So we really have to appreciate the incredible dynamic experience that we have here.
And appreciate that the dots know what to do.
And we're really, I think, yeah. And it's funny because like right now, my nose is dripping a little bit and it sucks. But I appreciate my body. It's not, I'm going to let it do its thing. I was sneezing a week or so ago and my friend was like, I forgot what he said, oh, you want some pharmaceutical drug I have to stop your sneezing? And I said, no, I'm just going to sneeze for a few minutes.
Take some Flonase.
Yeah.
This is the other thing too. We've been sold on this convenience of modernity that going back to suffering, but we have technology and we don't need to suffer because we have all these fancy age, right? That we have all this convenience, and we see this as a concurrent theme in all of life, that we are being further enslaved by this convenience from the phones, the technology, the needs of the state to control our lives, all to make our life easier and more convenient. And that's not natural order. And like our grandparents understood this because they were more in touch with nature. They were growing their food. They were not so, reliant upon this technology, right? And so they had that inherent intuition to know thyself, to know how their body's actually working. And so how do you guys tie in sort of all of this to your course? I'm just curious, like, how do you apply this and how do you make it applicable to someone's life?
Good question. And as real quick on this note, I have this awesome piece of technology in front of me that my grandfather had, that Josh had, and in class once when he was very young in elementary school, he got some respect from his teacher for using this awesome piece of technology in class. All right. You know what it is? As my nose is running a little bit, it's a handkerchief. Right? Here we go. Using my awesome piece of technology, yes. Moving forward.
The teacher was so impressed in the 4th grade I was carrying a handkerchief.
Except you just sprayed us all with germs.
Yeah, that's we can run around the playground on recess and germs, cooties. There's power there too. That's a good question, Mike. With us, the book is one thing. Our courses are really grounds for discussion. And this is the biggest thing, even with the consultations we do, we can give you the information, we can see very easily patterns and what's going on, but the power in the discussion. When I talk to people and how often in that 11th hour of the discussion, something comes up and it's like, oh, wow, there's a clue. There's a key, so as we do, and I remember I loved being in school. I went to a nice small college and I avoided the schooling somehow. But the idea of let's take a chapter, let's digest it for a moment, and let's discuss it. Our courses there's not a lot of people in the courses, so we can talk about what's going on with people, what has gone on with people in the past. At one point, you had this go on and you tried this, and how did that work? And it's interesting, as Josh and I do this, because we'll come up with something and people will go, oh, wow. And they'll realize something happened way back, and they did something just like that. So we're really helping people to see where they've already witnessed these things. It's just a question of having that conversation. So there are so many things, and like I said, even with this, it's like when you get into this deposition stage, what does Dad say? When things deposit, give the body nutrients or materials to heal itself. This is
I'm sorry, Adam, I had interrupted you. So that's going back to the homotoxicology. This is the 3rd phase.
Yeah, and this is where we start to talk about what do we do? And like I said, Dad says here, serious illness, deposition. This is when you're starting to mold people, right? Things are not able to get out of the body through excretion, through inflammation, so it's in there and it's going to deposit where you're weakest. Lots of grief, things go to the lungs. You've got scars and things will accumulate in that area. You've got dental issues, then you'll start to manifest there. But he said, give the body nutrients or materials to heal itself. And this is where you guys come in. You've got different things that you've taught people about. We talk about the isopathics and things like that. Isopathics, homeopathics, flower remedies. This is where we start. If we need to introduce something, we do something that's natural. And even some of the frequency things, the sound stuff and stuff like that. But it's just to give the body the gentle nudge in that right direction. So this is really a big part of the course, Mike. Us talking with people, having the conversations, what's going on with them. And what's nice is we do the courses, when you sign up for any of our courses, you get that lifetime access. So, we had somebody, you guys know Ira, he was in one, did you guys have him on at one point in time? I think maybe with David Parker or the Brown's Gas Experience. Ira took our first course, and he shows up every season. And there's different discussions, there's different conversations, there's different things coming to light, as far as what we see in our universe here. So there's always new conversation with respect to us looking at what we're doing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be an hour interview. Sorry, now that the leaf blower has finally stopped, drilling into my brain next door. Oh, nope, there he goes again.
It's okay.
He
We
was
can
waiting
barely
for you.
we can barely
Yeah.
hear him,
Oh,
Josh.
good. Thank God. Yes, I'm looking for a place without neighbors, just so you guys know. I don't have that yet. A huge part of it is, live webinars for us were supposed to be an hour, and they're routinely 2.5, 3 hours because there's so many connections kind of being made. As far as the homotoxicology goes, I would think one of the most difficult points that we have to get across is the role of inflammation, which is kind of step 2 in homotoxicology. The body tries to eliminate something. If it can't eliminate it, then the body brings up inflammation, in part to stimulate the elimination process, right? That's part of what inflammation does. It stimulates the elimination, right? So even anti-inflammatory, now it's actually anti-eliminatory also. So now people doing these endless detoxes and things like that, they're getting rid of their inflammation and wondering why their body's not eliminating. So one of the hardest messages for us to get across, outside of don't kill your damn parasites, is that inflammation is a good thing and we need to actually support it, right? But a lot of discussions happen in the course. And, part of it is we want to be as natural as possible, but we do live in a modern world now. So, the indigenous cultures, they're not getting hit by cars. They're not getting root canals. They're not getting mercury put in their mouth. They're not getting their appendix removed. So there's, one thing that Western medicine has done for us is osteopathy, at least the old school osteopaths, not the 98% that have sold out and just sit there with a prescription pad these days. But sometimes we need a manual mechanic because we're getting these force impact injuries that we probably didn't have 100 or so years ago, or at least as far as the advent of the modern civilization goes. So there's different tools that we can add into that. Us, Bear, we talk a lot about the body work and osteopathy and things like that. There's the scar tissue. Everybody's been butchered by dentists, so we talk about things to do about that. One of those things is to send them to your website to buy some of the awesome tooth stuff that you have on your website, Bear. One of the few things that I actually recommend for people these days. But there's a lot of good discussions, but it's really focused on the actual solutions, and the solutions are going to be different for every single person, right? So you got to get to know who that actual person is. But there's great conversations in the class. We really have a good time. It feels like it's the first time in a long time that I've learned something in the health industry. Since Dad passed, and then going through COVID and things like that, and it seems like every time I turned on the radio or YouTube, I felt like I was getting dumber listening to people talk about health. So thank God for you guys. And these courses, there's a lot of connections being made. And we've got people coming from, Australia, the New Zealand, they're all over Europe. So we're getting different terrains into the actual conversation. And it's really been helpful to me personally and emotionally, honestly.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys, how do we get people back into trades? These days everybody wants to, be a tech person, and you can't find somebody to fix your toilet, or the people that are going into trades from now on, I think, will be the next wave of millionaires because they don't exist anymore. But medicine used to be a trade. That's how I consider it. People were very pragmatic in my generation. It was all hands on. And like you're saying, when you get to those deposition and pigmentation phases in the 6 stages, you really need somebody that can move tissues around. And so how do we get another generation of doctors? I have kind of a fantasy that once we get to a certain point with our company that we'll be able to have some training and that sort of thing now. But it really takes a lot of dedication too for a practitioner to put in the time and learn these things. And Adam, you made a comment about, the sacred trio there, 2 of them being acupuncture and osteopathy. Osteopathy and acupuncture originally were the same thing. I did apprenticeships in Japanese meridian therapy, and the Japanese stayed true to the original old work before Mao came in and standardized acupuncture. But they understood that acupuncture wasn't some point standardized on a chart. It was energy flowing through the connective tissue and through the organs and such. So when you're practicing true osteopathy, you're completely aware of the meridian therapy, and it becomes one and the same. So But it also requires that now you learn two disciplines and you know how to conflate them into one. So, do you have anybody in your circles that's out there teaching the next generation some good hands-on stuff?
Good question.
Boy, that is it is one of the more difficult components. And kind of our old mentor is Dr. Steve Davidson, who is a student of
Mhm.
Robert Fulford. And he talks about how the old osteopaths were trained to work in the etheric world, and he kind of does it with a little twinkle in his eye, and how much of it is a lost art these days. Adam's going to be seeing him soon. We're hoping, just like Adam got to, save some of Dad's brain for our courses. Adam's going to go there and kind of put Steve on the spot a little bit to say, hey, some of this knowledge needs to be carried on. He did courses for a while, and people said it was too easy, the concept, so they wanted something more complicated.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's not even teaching anymore. We've got Dr. Clinton Zimmerman, who is a wonderful practitioner up in Michigan, who's an excellent body worker, who's kind of helping with the message as well. Right now, he's stuck in practice, but we're encouraging him to actually get out there and start to do some more hands-on trainings as well. So few and far between, Bear. We're open to suggestions. Adam's hopefully going to really track down Steve and get him to do some things. Clinton will be able to do some things for us in the future. It's such a lost art. There's always one around. There's always one body worker around, and they're always, Bear, the good ones are always these just strange people. They're just these bizarre people who don't come from this planet. So if you go see a good DO and they're really strange, that's usually a really good endorsement. But it's something we're kind of putting out there. It's really difficult these days because most of us need that body mechanic. These days, the default for me is at least get to your acupuncturist. Now the trainings on acupuncture, as you know, is starting to shift a little bit towards this green allopathy as well, which is highly disappointing. But there's still a lot of really good acupuncturists out there compared to the amount of actual osteopaths out there. Some of the acupuncturists will do body work also. Whether they're legally allowed to do that or not, I guess it's depending on what county they're in. But the combination of the acupuncture and osteopathy, as you said, used to be one and the same, is a huge combination. But we're working on it. I know Adam's working on it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
These are the things that I don't always share with Josh. We have certain things we do together, and then Adam does other things.
That's
And
because I
then
call out a lot of stuff sometimes, like, no.
I have to do things, and then as I get excited and I share with Josh, he goes no. So I don't share with Josh until I'm solid with what I'm doing. But it's a great question. So here's the idea too. Realize when people read books like my dad's books, this is a first step. All right. The first thing we're doing right now as we do our educational consultations is we're teaching individuals how to take care of themselves, specifically with relation to what they're going through. All right. And then when mom and dad do these things, Bear, Mike, then they know how to start to work with the kids. So we educate individuals is one thing. We have Steve Davidson, awesome. Like Josh said, he stopped teaching. I'll be with him after Confluence. I'm taking Anna and the kids there for her birthday, yay. And having a discussion with him on we don't want to be witness to the extinction of the classical osteopath. So what can we do? At one point we had Dr. Daniel Allen, who was our guy in Grass Valley, come down to Mexico. We were Rosarito area, and he was teaching us how to feel the flow. He was working with the kids and teaching them some things. All right. So I want to put something together. And what we're doing too, guys, is this. We have our university, Anna and I, the University of Terrain, which is awesome. There's all kinds of awesome courses there. But the first step is, read one of these books, start to learn what's going on with yourself. Then I have some of the younger people. We have Jacob Diaz is awesome. And he's saying, how do I help people? What do I do? And other people, David Barbarisi, I've thrown some names out because I love you guys, right? What do we do? They don't want to go to naturopathic school because they know it's not right now. They don't want to go to chiropractic school, although if you can get through it, you can at least touch people. You definitely wouldn't want to go to medical school. So we're working on a program which is a terrain facilitator / consultant program. All right. When people come to us and ask us for our insight, we're consulting with them. All right. So you guys have people all the time saying, what do you think? Well, if you want to know what I think, here's what I think. So we're starting to train people on how to have the conversations. The idea that we can do the blood, if you're a coach or something like that, and you want to work with people and you have friends, great. Get the blood to us and we'll consult with you and your client. We'll educate you. You to be a part of the discussion, right? And the discussions are one thing because we can see very easily with the consultations what's going on. At this point, Josh and I can look at your history form and pretty much start to tell what's going on, all right? But the next step is then what to do about it. And that's what's nice about like this book is the book says, okay, avoid the surgeries, is one thing. If you have had them, then there's other things you can do about the scars and things like that. But what we're doing, Bear, is fun, is basically I'm working on a standalone program that's going to be, you watch some videos and then we'll interact with you if you have questions. We're sharing short videos on all the stuff that we use, all right? So I talk about the microscope, definitely. We talk a little bit about the BioWell, some things that you can use to observe things, a little bit about thermography, there's something there, right? There's some interesting electroacupuncture devices you can use to measure things is one thing. Then what are you going to do about it, all right? So to have tools, to know a little bit about isopathics, a little bit about homeopathics, a little bit about flower remedies. All of us should know these things. This is what our grandparents knew. We can cook with this and it's going to help. I can give you a hug and it's going to help. Or I can just stretch you in some strange way, and it's going to help. So we're really working to, if nothing else, share what we have used with people, little summaries, and then people can then, if they're interested, go deeper. I want nothing more, Bear, than to have all the mothers in the world who have their little gardens and understand how that works, to see how there's very similar things going on with the terrain, so as their children get sick, they can really work with them. And they're one of our avatars. Mothers will pick up a car to save their child, right? And the children are the future. So that's at this point, and we've got a few people, they'll come to Mexico and we'll look at the blood. And then we'll do the Qigong, and then we'll use the BioWell, then we'll try the sound table, we'll do some focal toning. We'll get them to my local osteopath so they can feel what it's like to get a treatment like that. And we'll give them some tools and tips and techniques and just play and then see what people are interested in. Some people want to work with people, and you got to be prepared for that. Some people need to work with themselves, and people need to work with their families. So this is something this is our next step right now. Identifying problems and patterns is one thing, what to do about it's another thing, and then really giving people those trainings and the guidance. So we're working on that. We'll talk about osteopathy definitely, and fingers crossed, I'm going to get together with Steve and we'll put together some videos and some courses and things where you guys can learn some of these techniques. I mean, what's the book, Josh? The Cranial Sacral Qigong. For you guys out there, they're a massage therapist, learn some cranial sacral work. We need that. It's important. All right. Scars are very interesting, and Chinese medicine surrounds the dragon. Our sister is starting to experiment with actually needling the scar. But then there's something to be said for us just doing our own thing to start to see what we can do to affect ourselves before we're looking for somebody else to help us. All right. That's very important for us. Uh-huh.
One thing I'd like to add, I definitely still believe there's a need for a new group of physicians with a complete skill set, and I'd like to see that happen. But where you have to understand when you're working with the body, and especially if it's your own body, is that you're now acknowledging an intelligence within yourself. And what that intelligence really desires is to see you moving the ball forward. So if it's just a baby step, whether it's like exploring any of the above that you're talking about, that's going to work. I've had many folks in the past, they come to me and they say, I used to just go get my chiropractic adjustment and it worked great, but it doesn't work anymore. And what I'd explain is that, well, it's not that that doesn't work anymore. You're ready. Your body is saying, okay, you need to go a little bit deeper. And it's the same thing with when you're taking care of your own body. Just keep growing your awareness. Put in a little bit of elbow grease, and it's amazing, what people will see happen. So that's where I think not maybe, I would actually suggest that the course that you're teaching to lay people is even more valuable than getting out an elite group of doctors.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And that's a big part of our message is teaching people how nature works, because if you don't understand how nature works, you don't understand how the body works. And then taking up accountability for your own health. It's you who has to do the work. We can help support and point you in the right direction, and that's what practitioners can do. But in general, you have to do the work yourself. If you're sitting in a chair all day long and, taking pills or supplements and things like that, not doing anything to change any patterns, then what are you going to get? It's one of my favorite quotes, Adam, if you remember that Batman wouldn't be Batman if he did nothing. Right?
Right.
So you got to get off your butt. But a lot of people want to do that. They just don't understand where to start. And that's kind of what our course does is shows you those basics. How does nature work? We keep going back to that. We have a couple of my best friends are naturopaths, and they're totally disgusted with the naturopathic community these days. The green allopaths. And if you look at the name, it's pathology of nature, and they don't understand how nature actually works. This is the foundation of everything, and we're part of it, and we're not separate from it. And I think once you realize there's an interaction going on, you really feel the support. When I'm outside, walking, I'll get irritated and grumpy. I'll go walk on the beach or walk through the trees here, and I feel the ocean and I feel the trees, and that's the support that I'm looking for, and that's the support that's out there that's free.
Right.
And once you feel that invigoration, and it's almost like this loving embrace that you get from it, you realize you're not alone in this journey, and there is things going on. So, once people understand nature and then they understand how the body works, which is exactly the same as it works in nature, then it gives them a sense of confidence, and it takes a lot of fear out of the equation. And now they can start to move ahead with their lives. Takes them out of sympathetic mode to some degree.
Right.
Brilliant.
And I agree with you, Bear, totally. The first step, that's our breaking the spell of disease. Before you go to somebody, have you done what you can do? Do you understand a little bit about what's going on? Are we holding ourselves accountable? Are we putting our power and giving our power to somebody else? Fix me, doc. That dad would say, I don't fix anybody. No one gets you sick and no one cures you. So yeah, without question, this is why we really love what we do, is as people take these courses, we have the discussions, and they go do things, try it and see. And even when we do the consultations, I say this very often, I have got these different exercises and tools and tips and tricks. Go try them for a month, and then let's see what's going on, before you're looking outside. And we have so much power. So you're right, Bear. And it's also this too. The more we take care of ourselves, the less we need them. This is one reason I think things went on over the last 4 years, is they tried to make doctors heroes, because people like us don't need those doctors. You know what I mean? So yeah, you're right. And this is also, as we talk with people, everyone can do these things. We can all do these things. You don't have to be the practitioner, but you have to know how to take care of yourself. And as much as I'd like to, go get cranial sacral work all the time, they're not always the easiest practitioners to find, depending on. Good ones is another story. So learn the damn cranial sacral qigong, and now you're doing qigong and getting some cranial sacral treatments at the same time. And I don't know about you guys, but when I do these things, I feel really awesome about what I can do for myself. I can take care of myself, more or less. I know that we do need some support. Nature does nothing in isolation, so sometimes we need people. But yeah, you're right, Bear. That's why when we do these terrain facilitator courses or consultants, the first thing is it's just for you and your family. Start there. Take care of yourself. If you want to, especially if you want to work with anybody else, if you want to work with somebody else, make sure you're healthy and balanced in the first place. This is one reason I think it's very important for me to do my homework. I could be a potato. I could sit around and play my music all day and who cares, and eat my junk food, yay. That's not going to help me. Besides the fact that I am an example. How many physicians have we been to that are, oops, there's my alarm. Anyone that's supposed to go to Mari's course right now, go to Mari's course right now. Isopathic course is happening. Yeah, before you do anything else and put blame anywhere else, be the example. How many physicians have we been to that are unhealthy? Right? That's a difficult one. We had someone once that was like, it'd be great to have him work as our front desk person. He's large and unhealthy. We can't have that. And no one's perfect, but yeah, to take care of ourselves, I think Josh and I, that's our first goal. That was
Well,
Dad. Dad's goal.
It starts with the experience, and the experience needs to start at home in a lot of ways. A lot of, we do our courses. It's much easier dealing with the actual layperson like myself as opposed to a trained practitioner, whether it's traditional or alternative, because a lot of what we have to do is actually then untrain what that practitioner has actually learned. But everybody wants to learn something and then jump right into doing it, right, with other people. And there's an experience factor that's gone on here. We've seen what's gone on with the dark field community, which is ridiculous. People taking 2-hour classes and going out and telling people all this ridiculous crap, whereas I've looked in the microscope for 25 years and I'm still learning. Dad did it for 35 plus years. There's an experience factor that needs to be there before you start to go and put your opinions or your knowledge onto other people. Bear, a lot of farmers recommend don't even touch your property for a year. Just observe your property. But we live in such an impatient society, and I'm part of that. I'll be very honest. I'm just as impatient as the actual next person, But certainly when you're dealing with so-called, health care, or you're dealing with somebody's health, you need to have some experience, and you need to see how it works for you first. Maybe your family can be guinea pigs, and Dad was always testing stuff on us before he worked on a clinic. We were guinea pigs forever, and it was fun most of the time, most of the time. But learn the philosophy, and then go see how it works in nature, then go see how it works in your own life before you start pushing it on other people, and then realize people are individuals. Just because it worked for you, it doesn't mean it's going to work for them. So start to recognize the patterns.
And they call it the healing arts for a reason. It's a complete science. You have your background knowledge. You learn the anatomy, physiology, the meridians, and so forth. But then the arts come in when you get the experience and you learn to read between the lines. And I too looked at microscope slides, until I was almost blind. And I got to the point where I just went on impressions that were coming from a different place. It wasn't just about, there is something about the visuals and you learn from that, but you just get a sense about things. It's like, oh, I've seen this before, and you just get downloads in a way that tell you exactly what's going on. So the important thing about what you're teaching, I believe, is demystifying things to the point where you don't need to be part of the club. You don't need to have all the advanced terminologies. You mentioned Qigong. So what's Qigong? It's breathing and using your focus with intention. So if you can do it when you're stretching, when you're lifting weights, when you're just putting your mind and directing your energy into whatever you're doing in that body part. If good acupuncture is not just about sticking a needle in somebody, it's actually about, running the energy, and being a conduit for that. So that really, and osteopathy, the same thing. You're communicating now with, the opposite pole from the neurological pole, which is the meridians and all that stuff. And now you're, interfacing with that intelligence, that all that metabolic data is going directly to the cerebral spinal fluid, and from there directly to the etheric or astral level, which is actually, making your body moment by moment. So it's full circle. You don't have to have a PhD to just kind of tune in, get the feel of certain things, and then just be receptive to what the body is talking to you about all the time, every single moment, but we never hear it.
Right. Yeah, it's neat. And even for us too, the little home remedies, the things we could have learned from grandma and stuff like that, this is important too, as grandchildren and grandparents, family, passing down some of this information, which is an interesting thing. There are some things that get lost, but there are these things, we have these intuitions, we have our gut instinct, but we've been definitely beaten up by way of don't trust your gut, trust your doctor. Right. And it's fun. It's interesting too, because as I'm working
figure
with
out
some
which
of the
voice
kids,
is in your head. When you're getting that download and you're getting that input, you need to make sure that's your own internal voice as opposed to the noise from the outside. And that is very difficult for me included.
well, it's fun working with
That's
kids.
called mastery.
Mastery.
Well, then we get to
Well,
exude to a different plane, right?
I'm not done with this one yet. But yes, it's I think working with the kids for us has been interesting for me. Teaching kids a little bit about health. I'm writing some children's books now, which is fun, and they get it. And the thing is, when they talk to the parents, and the parents don't get it. That's our kids, Anna's kids. They come from school, and what did you learn? And oh, we learned about the Black Plague and how it's just like dengue and and these other viruses. It's like, oh crap! Now we got to go to school and talk to the teacher because she's not a health professional and she's brainwashing the kids. But the funny thing is, the kids, this makes total sense to them. And when we can start to work with them and show them some of these things, they grow up and it's a different world. So I think that's an important one. There's neat stuff out there these days, guys, right? Neat devices and plasma things and frequency things and all that stuff. But the reality is the amount of power still we have within ourselves to do these same exact things is awesome. And when we learn these things, when I learn these things, it kind of makes me feel like a child. It makes me giggle. That here's this $11,000 device. I looked at the blood before and after. It doesn't seem to do anything, But then singing or qigong or tuning forks or lying on the qi machine or just the sound table with a little vibration does something much more profound. Makes me laugh. Because so many people are trying now to get the money together to get the biggest device so it can fix them, right? We
Or
have power.
how about just getting up when the sun is rising and staring at it a bit and taking in the fresh air and then going for a cold dip and then getting your shoes off and just walking in the soil.
Yeah, awesome. My screen dims every so many minutes because I'm on the computer all the time, and there's a 5-minute break in the day and a 15-minute break. When I go up on the back porch, we have this one porch that's a little isolated, and the sun comes down, and there's my infrared sauna. And it's a funny thing to lie down in this hot chair for a few minutes. It's like, oh, and for all of us doing our work days, in the middle of your day, if you could sit in the infrared sauna for a few minutes, wouldn't that be nice? Right? Go stand outside for a few minutes. It's really awesome, and take advantage of those things. Yeah, Mike, come on. I mean, if we start our day surfing, it's a whole different day, right? And how many of us start our day straight up to the phone, coffee, out the door, into the car? Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. A lot of this just has to do with developing a practice, and it's not that complicated. Like I do 30-minute practice every morning of yoga, qigong, stretching, and meditation. It's 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's, and it's just developing that simple, a bit of that, a practice that is engaging in the body and the mind and the spirit and having the dedication and the discipline to stick with it. And it pays massive dividends, and you won't have to drop $11,000 on a Tesla machine that is open source that you could make for a couple $100. By the way, I do need the specs for that, Adam, because
Yes.
Billy Bond, who's coming on the show in a couple weeks, he's a farmer, was going to buy that thing. And I was telling him about this. I was like, no, I need to just show you the open source specs.
Yes. We'll talk about that in a moment too. But here's the thing. You're right. And still with everybody, we all have excuses. Well, I got to do this. I got this. Give me a break. You got 30 minutes. Okay. I got the Qigong video. It's 18 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. I do 20 minutes every day and I feel different. And I sometimes have to drag myself to do it. I get up and I'm tired. A lot of stuff goes on and physically we get tired. But when I do these things, the stretching, things move. Well, disease cannot exist where there's no stagnation, right? The humming, the vibration that's going on, the intention of out goes the anger, in comes the joy. 20 minutes and my day is different. 5 minutes of playing my guitar, all right? And they've done these studies. There's that book, which is awesome, The Happiness Advantage, right? Sean Anker, they've done all these tests, and he talks about, I can give you any one of a bunch of different tasks and prime you to be in a happy group, a neutral group, or an unhappy group, and every single time the happy group outperforms. And the last time I read, they had done this over 65,000 times. All right? So when I got something I got to do that I'm not necessarily looking forward to, 5 minutes of my guitar changes my scene. A few minutes of music in the car changes my experience, right? So these little things, if we can get up and just nourish our terrain right off the bat, right? Pick a grapefruit off the tree, all right? And then do the Qigong. Watch some stupid cat videos on YouTube, right? These things are good for our health, just to enjoy and relax and get out of our head. Then there's other things that can go on if we need to, and it is funny because with Anna, you guys will have Anna. She loves the toys. There are some cool toys out there.
Having some internet issues there with you, Adam. I think there's some tacos in your line.
Yeah, it could cut out a little bit there.
But I know what he's saying about Anna, who's in the chat, and Anna Maria will be on AlphaCast next week. I'm looking forward to a deep dive with her, and we had a wonderful discussion at Anarchapulco this year, and we touched on Steiner Bear, and so we're going to get into a bit of Steiner and a lot of her amazing work. There you are. You're back, Adam.
Yeah. So what I was saying as I hear you talk about Anna, was she's the electrical device person, so she's experienced so many of these devices. And there's some interesting things, but it's still, why are we looking to something to fix us? There are devices that can be diagnostic. To observe things is one thing. But then there are these other ones, frequencies. We talked about this before. The Rife device is great, but if you're doing a frequency for a symptom, that's allopathic, right? Yeah. Anna talked about the placebo effect with the devices is funny. Someone said, if you have a device that costs you $400, the cure will last a day. If you have a device that costs $1,000, the cure will last a week or longer. If you have a device that's, yes, $11,000, the cure may last much longer. And I've had a lot of people, when we were at Anarchapulco and everyone's trying to buy that Tesla device, because these important famous people are promoting it because people have been cured. Once again, people, it's not about something fixing you, okay? So you're going to keep drinking, being a jerk, and smoking, eating McDonald's, and this device is going to fix you? No, all right? But the interesting thing of how many people have said, well, I saw a cure of this and cure of this, and my response is, well, the placebo effect is very powerful. Especially
and I'd
if
also
you're
like
spending a
to
lot of
talk
money.
to those people a few months or few years down the road to see how they're doing, because what you do is you hand your power, you externalize your power, and it can work temporarily, just like going to a doctor and say, oh, it worked and everything. But yeah, that's the one endless road that goes nowhere. So yeah, and if you look at all these devices, all of them have websites with great marketing, and they also have, well, they cost $65,000, but you'll be able to see this amount of patients per week at so many dollars per visit, and it'll be paid off in 1 year, and you'll be making, netting so much, and it's all about that. I would also argue that if you have a technology that requires an external power source, in other words, dirty energy, you are overriding the ability to read the energy that you really need to read, that means something. And the only technology that I know of on Earth that's capable of getting a transmission of those information fields from that more finer level of energy is your hands. So,
Nice.
Right there. There's the
yeah.
mic drop. There's the mic drop right there, Bear. There is so many great points right there that we try to, impress on people as well. Yes, first, yeah, a cure. Give me a break. They call it remission in traditional medicine, right? Because those symptoms go away and
Yeah.
then it comes back. So your antibiotics might get rid of those symptoms. Let's see where you are down the line. And this is where homotoxicology really explains it nicely. Things like your ivermectin, let's give it a little time and see where it is down the line and see how these people are actually doing. If you're not changing anything about your physical, your emotional, your energetic lifestyle, there's no device, there's nothing that's going to fix you. And yes, there is nothing more powerful than your hands. And that's what we have to start nurturing again. So yeah, great points
Well,
there. There's cures and there's remission, and they're two different.
yeah, and in my opinion, one of the best osteopaths ever and still alive is Baral. And I was privileged to be a longtime student of his. And what I saw him in my younger years, when I first started studying with him, what he was able to do with his hands, I just thought that he was a gifted individual, which he is, but I just thought it wasn't able to be duplicated. But when you go through the sequential training and just tune in, you realize what he says is absolutely true. The hands are the most evolved technology on Earth, and it cannot be surpassed in any way.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
1000%.
good stuff.
Yeah, it's nice. I appreciate hearing that from you, Barry, because at one point, one of the questions I had was, you and your experience, you've seen quite a bit. Did you come across any devices that you thought treatment-wise, were interesting? And all I can think is there's one thing, like I said, if things are going to give us a nudge, in the right direction, but still, most people are looking for that fix. Devices to observe, thermography and things like that, awesome. The microscope, the way we use it is awesome, but devices, you've been through a lot, Bear. You've seen the bioresonance and all those things. I'm sure you got a couple cool toys in the background there too.
Yeah,
But
I have technologies. I love lasers and things like that, but they all are based on interjecting frequencies that exist in the body so that you can just have more of a direct access through the neurology to pinpoint your treatment a little bit. But it's not you still have to use your own understanding and understand the germ levels and the frequencies that work within germ. So, it's technological assistance, but it's not some of these devices were so absurd. You get wired up and then they give you a reading and here's your ascension frequency, and all this. I mean, just total horseshit. And I
yeah,
never saw them work, but it attracts patients and it's good for your practice for a while. And then you have to go out and buy the next gimmick.
Oh yeah, Dad's
Well,
first teacher had this machine that he'd hook people up to with all these bells and whistles and all these switches and all these lights. And Dad says, "So what do all those switches do?" He says, "Well, the on-off button works. The other things are just for show. People like to see it."
yeah.
Yeah. I
right.
mean,
Some of
some
them,
can be complimentary. Some can be complimentary, like the way you're utilizing them.
Now, there's
well,
one technology that was kind of cool. Sorry, Adam, I'll make it
no,
real
go
quick.
ahead. Yeah.
In the early days of clinical kinesiology, there was a machine that we developed that worked on EEG principles, and we understood the frequency for every muscle division in the body because it's all cataloged electronically within the neurology. So you could plug in, you put the electrodes on the head, you plug in the frequency for that particular muscle, and it would activate that muscle, which would then give us access to that whole neurological circuit. But then we take, manual techniques to go deeper, riff off that, and find out, what it was in that circuit that needed to be prioritized and treated, and specifically how. There's one time, I had an MS person that hadn't been walking forever, and I isolated a division of the rectus femoris that he had no control over, put in the frequency for it, held it up, and I said, hold your leg up, and, without the frequency, boom, to the table, dial it in, and he held it up, and he was just, flabbergasted, how he had control. So there's certain things within technology, but you're not using that to fix you. It's just understanding how the body works. The body works on frequencies. And in fact, every muscle of the body is recognized neurologically by its own unique frequency. So some of those things can be useful, but those are what I'm speaking of is very different than, all the kind of new agey stuff out there and quantum
Well,
this and everything.
those are the red flags when it's quantum. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a sales
Hmm.
pitch. Well, and what I hear you say with that is it helped to potentially facilitate a block opening, and it
Hmm.
makes me think of my tuning forks. I love the acutonics forks that you use right on the body, put a little vibration there. But then I think about,
Exactly.
lying on my massage table, I put the transducers, so it's like a gaming table, and I can feel the vibration. But then when I'm lying there, I can sing. And even with the Qigong moves, you're moving the sound, I can move the sound right to the liver. The sound is a frequency. So that's interesting, and still, so you haven't found one machine that fixes everything? Is that what you're saying?
Still
Still
looking.
$11,000.
Yeah, okay. Well, and
Yeah.
I'm curious with what Anna and I are doing these days. I just started my own little Substack, which is cool because the Bigelsen Academy, we want to stay very focused on solutions. All right. And there are some things out there that I have to just call out as stupid. So we might do, Anna thinks we should do the Hall of Shame. This month we're going to look at nanotechnology in Pepsi and the morons, Ho'oponopono or No'oponopono, that think that's what they're seeing and scaring people. Don't drink Pepsi. That's a good idea. But still, it's the power we have within ourselves. But if people spend $11,000 on a device, there's a placebo effect. I would like to see this. Steve, right now, that's working with us, He's the guy that was running the stem cell laboratory from one of these places in Baja. He's working with exosomes, and he's building one of these devices, the Tesla device, which is an old based on Likovsky, if I'm not mistaken. 100-year-old technology. So we're going to build one. We're going to put the video together so we can share it, and then save people thousands of dollars. All right. It's still, as we do the testing, I don't see a lot with the blood before and after it. Anna will see some different things with the BioWell, which is one thing. We have to do testing. And I want to do these things because I want to help people, if we can, not be distracted. And in town, local town here, there's one of these Rasha devices, which I had no idea. They start at $50,000. That's a lot of money. That's got to be a very powerful placebo effect. I've never experienced it. I'm curious. I've seen my tuning forks affect the blood. I've seen the sound table. I've seen the qigong and the vocal toning affect the blood. I've seen other things not do anything. So with Anna and I, we're going to do more of this stuff. And with the Substack, I'll call out some ridiculousness. We'll stay focused on the solutions with the Bigelsen Academy and the positivity and the moving forward. But I feel for people. When I have a client who's going to go through the hip surgery and is trying to borrow thousands of dollars from a friend to go into debt to get a device, I'm a little concerned. I feel this is someone that's come to us, so I'm going to give them my 2 cents. And for Mike, for us, you and I to be.
Lose them again.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think it's important. Anytime you're delving into whether this works or this doesn't work, you got to look at it over a long period of time. Even with us with the microscope, we used to do blood before and after everything. All that's showing you is that snapshot in time, and it's showing you what the changes are. But to really document real changes, you got to do this over a longer period of time. How is the blood looking after these treatments in 6 months? How is it looking in a year? So, a lot of things can give you a snapshot in time of what's going on and document some of the changes. But we see so much ridiculous garbage out there. This is before and after me eating pork, right? Well, who's pork? Right. And, what's it look like the next day after you have a bowel movement? There's so many different things that can be involved in actual, experimenting and understanding how things work, that it's just we're capturing moments in time here. And you have to start to recognize those patterns over a longer period of time before coming to any conclusions whatsoever. And that's kind of a lost art these days, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's
And, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's a great combination of one, knowing the universal principles and not relying just basically on inductive reasoning, because that's just giving you little snippets that if you don't know the grand design, you're going to be lost in the forest, right? In the trees there. But then also, once you know in the universal principles we're discussing here, like germs don't make you sick, then knowing how to intuitively listen and feel yourself. People are way too, I think one of the pitfalls I'm seeing with the internet and with all this information coming out from all these channels and stuff, and hey, we're out there doing it as well, but as there's like an overabundance of intellectual thinking around all this stuff. And we literally had like one of our members in here saying she's stuck now. She doesn't, in the chat here, doesn't even understand where to go in the body anymore because she's getting all this information from all these gurus and all these channels and all this stuff. And that's another trap, right? Josh, it's like too much stuck in the mind and thinking about stuff and not feeling. This is your body. This is you. Know yourself.
It's a huge part of it. I mean, honestly, I'll be very honest. It's difficult for me. I'm a work in progress as far as that goes. But yeah, absolutely. We would have clients in there, and they start to get into their parrot syndrome, where they're just repeating stories. And dads would realize as soon as they're not looking at you, you've got to bring them back on target, right? They're looking over your shoulder and things like. So sometimes he would be like, come back. And if he still couldn't get them to come back, he'd actually say, let's do a little body work on them for 5 minutes. Let's see if we can ground them for a little bit. Or I know a lot of osteopaths walk outside for an hour before you even come see me. Go walk in the forest a little bit. So many people are disconnected from the earth, whether it's our shoes or the concrete they're walking on, but very few people feel anymore. And that's one of the great things about this body is that we can feel things. and the pharmaceuticals are designed to make you feel nothing. Botox, I feel great. No, you actually feel nothing now. You don't feel anything. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to have these wonderful feelings. Even pain, as much as we don't like it, that's a sign that something is going on and the body is working on healing things. So yeah, absolutely. Trying to get out of our left brain is a very, very difficult thing. The only thing that really does it for me is when I go outside. When Adam and I used to argue, he would just say birds, and I would look out the window immediately to see if there was birds around. So it's different for everybody, but you have to have that when you recognize that pattern, you got to have that pattern disruption in there somewhere, right? Just
Yeah.
just get out, like you said, take your shoes off, dip your feet in the water, go out in the ocean. It is a huge problem, and there's so much misinformation out there these days from so many different angles. And there's pieces of information out there that's right, but how are you going to pick through all that garbage when you're being bombarded with it? So it's very difficult. So as Dad always said, health is simple and people are complicated. And you can't be working with multiple practitioners, right? You get Picasso and Rembrandt and together in a room together, they make a mess of everything. So
Yeah.
you got
Too
to
many
really
chefs in the kitchen.
absolutely. That makes a crappy soup. So we tell our
Yeah.
people, okay, if you're going to go see Dr. Zimmerman, that's it. You let him run the show, and you're a part of that. And one of Dad's things is, because at the end when he had no license, he had to work with under other doctors' names and things like that. And people would come in because he wasn't a primary and say, well, my doctor, says this, and Dad would always cut him off and say, if your doctor knew what they were doing, you wouldn't be here in the first place. Right? So there's so much information out there, but go inside, breathe on it a little bit, do some meditation. We
Yeah.
have the answer within us. And if you're going to listen to somebody else, make sure you're very aligned with what they're talking about because there's a lot of energy
And
battles going on these days.
and especially the doctors need to get out of their heads. When I was in my peak practice, we had a very large international clinic, and we had a 5,000 square foot building, and we had a big lecture hall. So periodically, we'd have seminars. They'd be in the specialty, that I was involved with at the time. And we'd always cap it off at about 50 doctors. So you have 50 doctors here. The first thing we did every morning, we'd bus them up about 2 miles up the road on the north coast of Maui. And we'd go up to Twin Falls, hike in, about a half a mile, and walk up to this waterfall that was 50 feet. And everybody had to jump off the waterfall. And it really freaked a lot of people out, but eventually they'd sit up there trembling and they'd do it. And, for the rest of the day, they were totally different. It's all they could talk about is, wow, I jumped. So we did that every morning. And, we just had great food. At night, we had authentic Hawaiian music and dancers, not the stuff you see in the resorts, but people that we knew. We had the people that we worked with from the old Kahuna heritage and whatnot. And they'd kind of put in their 2 cents in a little evening lecture after we did, more of our left brain lectures, clinical kinesiology and things that we were teaching. So our whole tact back then, and, this was in mid to 80s to 90s, it was just trying to get doctors out of their head. And it was really good. It was a life-changing experience. And just like what your dad used to do, that's the first thing you do. You're just reading the person's energy. I'd bring them a glass of water to bring them around or tell them to go take a walk. If it was an athlete that was in for an injury, I'd make them go run 5 miles and come back. And, so, then they were ready to just settle in and you could get real about things. Welcome back, Adam.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks. I'm on the phone trying to get, all the internet went down for a moment. It is what it's supposed to be. So I'm glad you guys had time to talk about me while I wasn't here.
You can watch it on you can watch it on the replay.
Yeah, awesome.
I hope you didn't hear any of it.
No, I'm easy. Say what you got to say. And it looks like it's coming back on the computer here. So if that happens, you'll get two of me. Yeah, that'll be fun. But I got the last as I was listening to you, having doctors jump in the water off a cliff. Yeah, awesome. It's fun to have.
Some doctors should jump off a cliff.
Yes.
Without water.
Well, I was going to say it.
It's fun to support people, though, to have the experiences, I think. That's what's fun about what we do is don't take our word for it. Go try some of these things and see what happens. I had somebody, I missed how you guys got into the whole thing, but I had someone just recently that said they did some Qigong A couple that came to me, we did the consultation. They're not unhealthy people. They're a little older. They want to be as healthy as possible. And she said, doing the Qigong with the lung exercise, the amount of grief, like the tears that just started coming out of her was amazing, and even focusing on joy as she realized she doesn't get as much joy in her life as she thought. So how many of us are stuck in our head versus actually jumping off a cliff into the water to stimulate the whole experience for us,
Well,
right?
that's the pattern disruption. And I think it's important. Left brain and right brain are there to balance each other out. And as left brain as dad was, when you heard him talking about pH and things like that, the things that balance it out the most is joy. So you can go down this deep rabbit hole, or you can go be happy, or you can take your feet up, your shoes off and go walk in the grass. So, I'm still working on that balance, absolutely. But it's supposed to be a balance there, and it definitely makes things much easier. Because,
And an
if
old
you don't do
school,
those pattern disruptions, life will disrupt the pattern for you.
I was just going to say, in old school retreats, it was about the integration of mind with the heart.
Yeah.
It's not, trying to get out of one and into the other. They're supposed to work together. Otherwise, it's like having your onboard navigation in your car without a driver, and the thing won't shut up even after you get to your destination. It's a tool. And if it's not integrated with the heart, then, and the heart is capable of picking up more information in the first place anyway, and making sense out of it at different levels of logic that the
Yeah,
brain can only, do so much.
absolutely.
Well, and one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit too was the getting together experience. It's nice that we can have these conversations online, which is awesome. Anna and I do retreats periodically, and we do small retreats, 5 to 10 people. And it's basically sharing the terrain. We get up, we eat breakfast with people, we have discussions, we do the practices, we look and observe the reactions, we do the lunch together, people can help us cook the food, things like that. And the power of being together is amazing. It's fun, Mike, when we do things like Music and Sky and Anarchapulco, as much as we've talked online is one thing, but there's something cool about, Anarchapulco and getting up to go jump in the water for breakfast, and there's Mike, yeah, and you walk a corner and there's Mike, yeah, and then someone wasn't feeling good and someone's like, well, talk to Mike, There's something neat about that. You're muted, Mike, so we can't hear you talk.
I just gonna say, I always get, whoa, you're tall, dude.
Yeah, totally. That was the first. I've said this to everybody. It's neat meeting people. And Mike Winter's so tall. It's crazy. You see the pictures of us in Anarchapulco, and I'm short, I guess. I didn't realize that. But the point of being together, being in the presence, it's funny, Bear, because as we talk to people, people love you, and it's great. And they would like to just be able to be near you. To stand next to somebody for just a moment or two is an interesting, energetic experience. And what's very interesting too is, and maybe you guys have experienced this, we have our heroes, these people we look up to, and then sometimes we get next to them and you don't want to be next to them. There's something very interesting about what happens as far as when you're next to genuine people and really feeling. And even, like Steve Davidson, the osteopath, is awesome. We've seen him do things without touching people. So we want to do things to get together more often. And Josh is, he's in Oregon. He's changing the terrain. He's getting out to see different spots. I want to do things and invite people here. So we do. Anna and I do retreats, which is fun. We have a good time. We're going to do this terrain facilitator thing. Come, you're not sick. You want to help people. Let's play with all the toys we got, and let's look and see what happens, and that's fun. We're going to do, Josh and I and Dr. Marzel Arce, we're going to be doing an event in New York, which I'll give you the little teaser in September. Josh and I, Marzel Arce, Anna's going to be there, which will be awesome. We're inviting Topher Gardner to talk about biochar. So we're going to talk about from soil to soul. Kaufman will be there and he'll say, wait, don't go to the hospital. We'll start to talk about the soil and the body and the connections with the energetic experience. Clinton,
Zimmerman will be there too. Yeah.
To talk about some of the flower remedies. So to really give people this neat connection from this to that to the other and have a really coherent event. Mike, we've been to some events recently that had some really ridiculous coherence, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yay. But to do this and to be able to be with people, I want to meet you guys. You know what I mean? It's like if I could do what I want to do, I want a hug from everybody. You know what I mean? So if you see me, I got the David Barbarisi Free Hugs t-shirt on, right? With you though, Bear, Anna and I,
Uh-oh.
well, yeah, here it comes. Anna and I, you Bear. Anna and I, as we're gonna get to the States, not that that's something she's ever wanted to do, but something's going on there. Oh, we just got rid of Bear. Pointed him right out of the picture.
I was just kidding there.
He run off. But when I'm out and about, I want to give people the opportunity for us to gather. Okay, strength in numbers is important. My biofield is awesome, and I'm much more impermeable to outside influences. I think this was part of the last 4 years. One of the healthiest things we can do, Mike, is be together with music. We're all in that same frequency, that same vibration. We're much less permeable, more impermeable to these outside 5Gs and things like that. So I want to do more stuff. Anna and I are going to get to see Mom in the Auburn area. There's people we met at Acapulco, you may have met, Mike, that have a small school, small farm. Anna's going to go and start to teach their kids how to read with the blindfolds, right? As this is coming out now. So as we're out in that area, we want to go up the coast. Anna would love to meet you. So we're going to get together, which will be awesome. Can we do something where we can invite more of your family, more of the people that follow us, that can actually sit with us? And when we have that exchange, there's a movie I just saw, Electric something. It was one of these ridiculous Hollywood movies, right? And they take the dead brother's soul or whatever, his ghost, it goes into the robot. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, here's our transhumanism thing, right? But the end, spoiler, if you don't want to hear the spoiler, too bad, tune out. The end, basically they take down the system and the girl does a speech and she says, what if when we get together and hug and cry and laugh and argue, there are particles inside us that exchange? I get chills, right? It's like, is Hollywood talking about the symbionts, the microzymas? And when we get together, there's an exchange. So I want to get together with people. I want to get together with you. It was nice to see you at Music in Sky. I met Bear Lando once in person. Yay. And then it was rudely interrupted immediately by 20 other people that wanted to meet Bear Lando in person. So, but what can we do? And it's funny because Bear, you talked about events with 10,000 people. I don't want to do that. I'd like to do something small in your area where we can get a group of people and we can share our terrain. Because when we're with people, part of that goes home with us. It's neat. Mike, as much as I've, Music in the Sky twice, right? And Acapulco twice. I feel like I know you much more now. I can feel the Mike Winner experience much more when I'm just here talking to you. There's a whole different resonance, and I think that's very valuable for us, all of us.
Well, that's like one of the biggest keys to all right now in terms of a solution, because we know since COVID, especially, everyone's been more isolated and out of convenience, right? It's easier to do a Zoom meeting than show up to an office, right? It's easier to go on the app and have my food delivered to me from a self-driving automobile than go to the restaurant and pick it up. It's easier. But then what's it really doing, right? It's creating this separation, the simulation, the simulacrum of reality. And it's more importantly than anything, like you're saying, I think it's breaking apart the biological connection that we're supposed to have, right? So that's why we started Music in Sky. It's literally why, well, also we just wanted to have a lot of fun. But we saw what was going on in 2020 and we're like, oh, no, the arts are a means, a bridge to bring people back together. Yeah, it's been great. We've done 6 of them and, we're moving on to creating this Music in Sky village that'll be permanent. It's a massive undertaking, multi-year undertaking. And I know you and Anna expressed potential interest in, in getting a plot, and it's going to be, an equity share private community. And we're looking right now in Northern California. So, in Southern Oregon. So yeah, exciting times because people want to be together more and more how we're supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. And it's neat. I talked with Misha Kohashi just recently. She's the director of Dr. Moto's Peace Project.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, it was interesting because we're going to do a Zoom with them, Josh and I and Anna and Michiko and Hiro, Dr. Moto's son. And there's something interesting parallel with us because Hiro and Josh and I, our fathers did something pretty amazing and left us with this to share. And it hasn't been the easiest experience for us. It's been similar for them. But one of the things they're doing is creating water ceremony events that are going to happen simultaneously. And I remember there was a music festival at one point, I don't know if it was Symbiosis or something, where they were trying to do the same event in different places at the same time. So we're all on that frequency in different areas. It's amazing to me, Mike, how awesome we feel being able to hang out with you and a few of those other people at Anarchapulco. It's so awesome that I am having a tough time now wanting to tell them I don't want to be a part of that anymore because of what went on last time. Coherence is very important to me, and yeah.
Well, that's part of the reason why we're doing this thing in New York, is I think I talked to you about this, Bear, in the past when, a lot of people ask us to lecture and do interviews, and half the time I'll just say no, because there's some things that are divisive sometimes. And Adam, God bless him, he's open to talking to anybody, and I need to learn a little bit from that, So they were going to an event, and I said, "There's speakers on there that are just speaking garbage. I don't want to be a part of that." And you said, "Well, a lot of our guys just go there so they can be together and hang out." And there's something powerful about that, but that's part of the reason we're trying to set this thing up in New York, because we'd like to create a kind of a different movement. We've been kind of stuck. We've been lumped in with a dark field community and this type of community. And some people are aligned, not the dark field people at all.
The dark field.
You totally.
There's something about that, right? That's
dark field people. I should post that video I did, Adam, on them, where I talk about coming to the dark side, supplements and things like that. But that's part of the reason we're trying to shift it and really create a different movement, which is just preaching a lot of positivity and talking more about nature and keeping some of the fear mongering out of it. And that's so hard these days. I'm
well,
very
and Josh, that is another reason why we go to Anarchapulco, is because we interface with the attendees and we bring what our vibe is and what we know and how we embody that in our life. And so that is another important element. And just having our energy vibrating in this space, I believe, is a counter without even having to say a word. Yeah. And so, that was a big reason why I went this year, was like, I'm going to go and ground that place with Adam, and Tom Barnett was there, and just some beautiful people, because of some certain individuals that were there that I was highly alarmed about that I had to introduce one of them.
Well,
oh God.
Yeah.
I think that individual is a prime example of somebody who's never gets out of his podcast studio, just surrounded by electronics, getting information, and then ends up hating. When you spend time in nature, you lose that knack because you see the cohesiveness between all life, and you realize if you're hating on one group of people, you're actually hating yourself because you can't separate the parts. So, it's just sad for that individual that they have to go down that road, and it's an archaic resonance that is being removed from the planet right now. But, we're going to see some of that hatred come to the surface. And it's time, obviously, where we're supposed to be getting together, not isolating one group, we're blaming one group and so forth. So, that was unfortunate. And when I heard that, it actually kind of pissed me off. So, but, we're all strong enough not to take it personally and just empathize with the pain that those kinds of people are in, to self-isolate and self-hate like that.
Well, I appreciate you being there, Mike, to help Adam out, to help shift that energy anyways, because the positivity is always going to overwhelm the negativity.
Well, and this was a good learning lesson for Adam too, because he was pissed off. He was highly triggered and was going to approach that. Yeah. The fisticuffs. And that dude's was like known to be a street brawler and obviously has never planted a fruit in his life. And anyways, we had, and you were there with multiple friends, right? Like Abe was there, all these people had your back. And it's like, dude, that's exactly what he wants. And he's getting into your energy field. And really, it's like about transmuting and transcending it and then bringing that onto the stage because you still had to do your talk and you did that beautifully, my friend.
Thank you. It was an interesting time, guys, and it was funny because if Josh was there, we might have left. And it was definitely after that whole experience went down, I was only there for a few minutes and it was like, wow, I didn't expect to be so irritated by this ridiculousness. And there was one moment in that green room area where I went to get my stuff. I was like, let's get the hell out of here. And there was me and he who must not be named, just the two of us. And I had this moment of, I could tap him on the shoulder and kick him right in the testicles, and no one will ever even see it. And I'll know it. He'll go down, and I'll just be like, yeah. Not that that would have helped anything, I think I would have felt better. Not that I want to do that, but I did, Mike. I thought, and I took the time. And in my presentation, I said something at the end, and there were a lot of people that needed to hear that. And this is what, Bear, anytime I think of that word transmutate, I think of you, life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. There was a reason I was there. There was a reason I got to hear that for those few minutes. I was surrounded by the best people. There was more support for me there physically and energetically than I've had in a long time. That was the right place for me to be, to hear that, to be able to take that in and then output something in a way that made sense. And I think I did. I'm proud of how I handled it, and it is interesting too, because right now they asked me to be part of this non-conformist series thing, which is affiliated with Anarchapulco, and I might say no, and the only downfall of this is, well, I won't get invited to Anarchapulco, but Mike will do other things, and I do think there's something to be said for these days where I'm at, my terrain is unique. I haven't seen a heavy metal concert in a long time, and I could use one, especially after that last Anarchapulco thing. The waves help a lot. Surfing, my guitar. So I get to surf on my birthday a couple weeks ago. It was awesome. We'll get to do events. I feel like us in general, seasonally, things change. So if we can do something seasonally, gathering of sorts, and Bear, historically, didn't indigenous tribes, cultures, peoples do different things as gatherings when the seasons would change.
Absolutely.
And I feel like
that's how they interface with nature directly.
Yeah.
I think the rain dance, and when someone passed away or if someone was sick, they would chant and sing and dance.
Right. So to do this, it's if Josh and I can do something in September in New York, and then 3 months later we could do the same idea in a different spot. The idea of us putting this talk together, a coherent talk, terrainology from soil to soul, and doing it here, and then taking part of the moving show on the road and doing it here, and we always want to get local people involved. If we can get a local farmer, go ahead, Bear.
I was just going to say, so what's it look like? I know we've been kind of loosely talking about without a specific date about coming here to the farm. How many folks do you have that want to come here?
Let's talk about that. That's a good question. People are listening, right?
Okay.
How many of you guys want to come hang out with Josh and Bear and Mike and I? Right? I'm not involved in any of the chats right now, but I like to think that those are starting
Silence. I hear silence.
to
Adam.
light up a little bit, right? What can we do? Josh, you got to go hang out with Bear. You guys looked at some blood. I have the camera behind me from this new microscope that I'm going to be testing, and if all goes well, we'll have a line on some microscopes. Yeah.
Nice.
So I would love to bring a microscope. Let's sit with a group and let's look at up with some blood. Just have a conversation. Let's go out into your farm, and then let's look at a drop of blood after that. Let's do these things. So the question then is,
It would be
Bear.
really fun to have somebody that's coming in from like a really frenetic area, like the city, San Francisco or something, and then take their blood right when they arrive, and then their blood when they leave.
Definitely. Yeah. This would be fun. So the question then to you, Bear, is how can we do this with you in a way that makes sense for you? You know, I haven't been to your space, and if we go there, I know that there's four-wheel drives involved. Yay. So there's that. I know you at least did a little farm tour after Music in the Sky the one time. So you've got people that would love to be there.
And he's pretty much up at the crack of dawn working all day also. So,
Which is
Yeah.
great.
So
Yeah. What works for you?
the upcoming farm tour that we're giving in June, we have some people that are helping us out, and they'll park up on the road and caravan people down that don't have four-wheel drive trucks, you know, because our driveway is
it's horse only now.
Horse only. Awesome. That's okay.
but no, we have a way around that. We just have to coordinate it, get some people that are willing to help us out and set a date. And then there would be, you know, a limited number of people. Like with this farm tour, I think we're capping it about 25.
yeah.
Cool. Nice. And I talked with, you guys had Abe on recently. He's in Ashland. Is that right, Josh?
No,
Oh.
he's about 45 minutes away from me. I'm actually going to hang out with him tomorrow.
Okay. Well, he mentioned, at least, if nothing else, he asked, would we come to Ashland? I said, if you got people. So, you know, it's one thing to bring people to your space, and I appreciate you.
Ashland would be great. Yeah, no, Abe grew up there and he has family and connections there, and so yeah, Ashland would be like a really great, or Jacksonville next door would be a great little spot. And I actually know some venues and I know people there as
Okay.
well. So
So food
yeah.
for thought there. You know, can we do something potentially, Bear, where we can get you off the property in a close proximity and get a space where we can do presentations and have people together?
Sure.
And then get a
Absolutely.
smaller
If
group.
you don't want if this area is too doesn't work, then yeah, sure, somewhere close. But I know I've been talking to Abe, and he's kind of looking forward to coming here, you know, with or without a group. So we
Cool.
could do it either way. Yeah.
Good. And I would love, in my world, I would love to do something where a bunch of people can get access. We can do some presentation, and then a smaller group can come and actually hang out, you know, at your place afterwards, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So part of it was that when I proposed this to you, I didn't necessarily expect you to say, "Hey, come here." It's not that I wanted to invite the world to your place, you know, because it's your place.
Well, we are working on potentially having a space that would be more conducive for this, that is closer to me. So these are all little things out as Alfa Vedic's growing. And if you guys want to have more hangout, and I'm saying to the audience, if you want to have us have the facility to do more hangouts, go buy some product from us.
Yeah.
'Cause that's how we fund this all.
It's a win-win, right? You get healthier, you support these people, and then maybe you get
Yeah,
to
we
hang
have
out.
we have a really neat space that we're looking at, and it would be ideal. And not only would it give us a larger facility to keep up with our company growth, but also it'd be a great hangout spot. And we would design it so it'd be a fun place to be.
Cool. Well, we're
Looking forward to
thinking we're thinking beginning of September, so we'll give you that much right now. Because end of September we got to get to New York area. But that's awesome. So we'll have another conversation with this, you guys and us, and we'll see what we can
Cool.
put together for your family and everyone out there that's listening, that's getting excited about getting to hang out. Yes. That'll be fun. And I really think too, you know, if we can do something that's coherent and then we can have it in different areas, you know, at different times. Bear, as much as I would love to have, let's look at your blood before and after surfing with Bear and Mike in the 80-degree water here in Mexico. Yay. I know. What do we have to do? Knock him out and get him on a plane or something, Mike, right?
We're working on a teleportation device.
I actually don't have blood
Okay.
anymore.
Nice. So we'll come to you, no pressure. But I really think
Bring
that,
your
you know, for
wetsuit.
all of us in general, if we can, yeah. If we can do things, you know, as seasons change, to just do some kind of events and do some gathering, I think life would be awesome. You know,
Oh,
we
dude,
do
it's
things
like
online,
I get
guys.
the most lit up from the I mean, Music in Sky is so much work, man, and it's so worth it because of that 4 or 5 days of hanging with this amazing community. It just, as you guys know, you all got to go there last year. It lights you up. It lights you
Yeah.
up for, and it's weird when you're in that vortex where time kind of goes away and you're just sort of really just tapped in this community, and you have to go back out and like you leave and you have to go gas up on the way home, and you look around and you're like, God, dude, it's just like so weird how people
Yeah.
live, like
Totally.
Definitely. No, I think
That's why I live where I live.
Yes.
I know, very.
which is great. Still the same thing as we need you out every once in a while so you can affect those around us. I mean, when I'm out here in Mexico, I smile at everybody. Your average Mexican they're very open people, which is really nice, and we affect people with our presence. So I think it's important for us to do. This was that last 4 years. Let's stay 6 feet away from each other, because God forbid we should start to entrain with, awesomeness and less fear and things like that. So that's really what I look forward to. The courses, guys, is one thing. And this is Josh and I, we've done whatever we can to, like what you guys are doing, to be accessible to people so people can hang out with us. And we do need to make a couple dollars because I can't afford the microscopes and stuff. So we charge a little bit of money. But I think the online stuff has been awesome. For Josh and I, we've made friends with people that are great. We've connected people with other people. There are people in Australia now that are getting together, which is awesome. On the other side of the world, there are people getting together because of our course. And I think if you got nothing more out of that than knowing you're not alone in your own terrain, that's kind of a big deal. I mean, how many of us feel like we're alone in the middle of nowhere? But we're not. So if we can connect online, awesome. We're going to do more of these events. And they're intense, Mike. I give you a lot of credit for doing Music in Sky. Rebecca Scott from Anarchapulco is working with us to do this event in New York. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, planning-wise. Ideally, as we do this, we get a good response and people come out. And if it goes well, there'll be enough money there to put into the next event.
Are you guys upstate or the city, or where you?
Upstate. We're still working on the location right now.
Okay.
So not the city necessarily.
Good.
But it's going to be fun. I'm excited. We'll have something really coherent.
You're gonna stop by Andy's house or Cowan's house?
Andy's coming to us, which is nice. He did,
Nice.
at that one out in Acapulco, he was showing me pictures of his Porsche and told me I could drive it if I ever visit him. So may have to go out there just to check that out. But yeah, it'll be fun. And the thing is this, he's venturing out. So if we can do, for people listening, if you have a community and a group where you can host some of this and help us get some people together, we'd love to talk. Mike, as a musician, I always wanted to go on tour, right? Yeah. Josh and I get the Bloodmobile. We'll start traveling around with doing that. I think would be fun.
We'll be doing the Western Price Conference this year also.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be lecturing at the Western Price Conference when in October in Salt Lake City, along with a few people who have spread some misinformation. So that'll be interesting to see an interaction there. But it'll be nice to be around some like-minded people because we've always liked, the traditional Weston Price work. So that'll be another spot where I actually get out, Adam.
Yeah.
It'll be a busy year.
There I assume we'll see Tom Cowan because he's typically there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That'll be cool.
Hopefully.
I've heard he's an awesome guy to hang with, actually. Super funny and affable character.
Nice.
He seems pretty down to earth. We only know
Price and Steiner guy, so that resonates well with me.
Yeah,
well, and knowing people online is one thing. Meeting them in person is a whole different experience. It is interesting because I have, Anarchapulco, there were people I had met online, and in person there was like no resonance. It was very interesting.
Yep.
Even Music in Sky, there were people I stood next to and didn't even know I was next to them. So I'm excited to meet people in person. There was one other thing I was going to say. Something I think, guys, though, still is, with Josh and I feel like we're one of those indicator species. When the Bigelsons start getting noticed a little bit, and attention going that way, it's because there's something opening up. All right. We're typically pretty deep in this hole of terrain where people have, Don and David Parker did research for 10 years and never came across us, right? But still something's gone on. When Josh and I did that podcast with Renette Senham and Chris John Northrup, and we were talking about the whole nanotech ridiculousness, and the Quinta Columna that came up in your chat was pretty funny. Josh and I finally said what needed to be said, and then within a few days, some key players took themselves out of the picture. And it's not that I feel like they did that because of us, but something energetically, the timing was right for us to say something in particular, and then the universe had a shift. And it's really interesting because even my local live blood guy is out of the picture right now. Not in the best way, but I just think that there's something going on if we look at patterns where there's the shift is happening. We need 10% is one thing, but we don't see certain things on media. There's definitely more than 10% of this world that's thinking things aren't right. You know what I mean? And looking back into what
Well,
we can do for ourselves.
there's a shift happening when the most popular podcaster in the world is now considered like a hardcore rightist, right-leaning fringe guy, and he's talking about the roll up your sleevers in a very, I mean, we have to talk in hobo code because we're on
Yeah,
YouTube here, but that's like
sure.
mainstream now, is
Yeah.
how destructive that was during that time in 2020. So, I mean, that's even in the like really mainstream normie world, like it's crazy the shift we're seeing in just the last, 2, 3 years.
Definitely. And it's really, I appreciate it. And I think though still for all of us, for you guys, your family, us, the people that listen to us, it's about being able to have these little filters. And Josh and I, what we try to do with these courses is just be able to help people look through the lens of the terrain, right? Someone said this the other day, put on the terrain lenses and then look and see things a little differently. If we can broaden our perspective and see things with a little bigger picture, we're going to see changes really happening.
That's why the education is so important, because you're right, Mike. We've seen this massive swing, but it's also gone a lot to the other opposite extreme.
Yep.
And the truth isn't going to be on either extremes there. So we've got people who are looking into the terrain solely because they don't believe in the germ theory. It doesn't mean what they're preaching has anything to do with the actual terrain. So it's gone extreme to the other side, which is a balancing out, which is great. But the truth generally lies somewhere in the middle, and that's what we try to preach.
And my main focus is just where I went with my practice, especially in latter years, and that is how did the terrain get there in the first place? So, terrain medicine can kind of go so far when we're just talking about bugs and things that are really important, because it gets people out of that paradigm of things out there affecting us rather than us being, the operator all the time. But now it's really time, I think, to integrate the old alchemical concepts and so forth, and not to try to go into some archaic past, but to, really distill it down into a context of waveform mechanics and go next level terrain. And what I was going to finalize with you guys today is, as sometimes I'm always thinking, well, we really need to bring back some of the more of these pragmatic hands-on tools and everything. But then there's another part of me that says, well, is that even where we're going? Maybe that's obsolete. Maybe we're just supposed to go totally to the other side and work from the inner. And, in the school that I've followed for many years, both Deb and myself, there's one individual in particular who is known historically as the great physician. And he was told at a certain point by masters, more experienced than himself, that it was time for him to get his hands off of people, because he needed to go direct. And by going direct, not only would it further his own personal evolution as far as why he was here in the first place, an embodiment, but also, be more effective for the people he was affecting. Like homeopathy, you're kind of going to a level of refinement with working with frequencies, without any impediments on the physical. So anyway, I think about that a lot. I'm really have a bias about a lot of the things I've been involved with, but then at the same time, if I see it not happening on the planet anymore, or not the next generation that's embracing it, then maybe that's by natural design.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're supposed to take, what the greats before us did. Not that I'm great, but we're supposed to take some of this great info, and we're supposed to take it to the next level. So as much as we
Yeah.
talk a lot about the microbiology and things like that, yeah, what's creating it? What is behind the terrain itself? I think we talked with Artur Sala about that too. There's something that's setting up the terrain, and that's what we have to start delving into a little bit these days. Take it to the next level.
Yeah.
Well, and
And the
next level,
microbiology is kind of cool because you
I love
are
it.
seeing into the unseen, to the naked eye.
Yep.
And again, that's where you can do a little reading between the lines there. Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
well, no, it's to support this too. It's like the great physician. There are people that have been able to show these things, to demonstrate it, You know, Dad did certain things, which was great, and Moto did certain things. But now at this point, it's not about us observing these great people who did great things. It's about us realizing that we are great and we can do great things too. You know, at Music and, or not Music and Sky, but at a Confluence, you know, Anna's kids will be there and they're going to do one of these blindfold demos. And when you see a child read without their eyes, that does something to you. You know, when I see this, every time I see it, it just makes me think about what else can we do? What else are we capable of? You know, so at this point, it's a really, I think it's about us learning things, new information, and taking some action to see the reactions. It's our time now. You know, with Dad, he just did this work and it's been here so we can share it with the world. As we give it to people, then it's on them to take the actions. And then they get to see the reactions. So we're supporting people in their power.
Well, that could be our next course, Bear. You can help us out with that. We'll teach a lot of the basics of, you know, the terrain and pleomorphism, and then we can do the next course and really delving into what's behind that. Even when Dad lectured with Emoto all those years ago, somehow the topic turned to mercury fillings. And Dad says more important than the mercury in your mouth is what attracted you to the mercury in the first place. Right?
Yeah.
So going deeper into what's actually behind the creation of the terrain. That would be a blast.
Yeah. We're in an
We may have
interesting...
to push people off a 100-foot cliff if you go there.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, people, right? You got to jump off a cliff, literally, metaphorically, either way. I think this is kind of where we're at, though. You know, it's one thing, you can come to us, we can look at your blood and tell you something, but it's on you to do what you need to do. You know, if you want to get a Tesla device, great. What happens when you stop using it? You know, we talked about this, the LifeWave patches and things like that. I know people that will never take them off. You know, and even Mike, that was part of the Alfa Vedic, the chat, you know, with someone talking about supplements, and my response is, you know, we're not against you using things to manage at a certain point in time while you do what you got to do. Put a Band-Aid on the front of the dam while you figure out what's going on behind and fix the damn leak where it's coming from at the source. You know, so I think you guys have an awesome community, which is nice. It's really nice to get to chat with you and talk about these things with other people listening. Bear, it's nice to have you as a resource for us, because there are definitely questions we still have as we do what we do, you know, and the nice thing is you've had experience. And this is what we're trying to encourage everyone else to do too, is get the experiences. Go try these things. If you haven't tried the Qigong, people, try it. You know, if you've got, before we want to fix you, have you worked with your teeth and cleaned up your mouth? Are you eating the right things? You know, are you putting the right things in your head? Are you thinking the right stuff? You know, where are you putting your attention and focus? I don't think you're broken. You know, we talked to the regenerative farmers, and there are no mistakes in nature. So whatever we've gone through, there's reasons for us, reasons for that. We're transmutating all kinds of information and energy and things within us. So I think I am amazed at who we are as individuals. And what we can do when we gather together is even more profound. So at this point, you know, it's one thing for you guys to come. What Josh and I really, with these courses that we do, we want to be able to hang out with people, to have more of these interactive discussions, you know, and I think that's the new word, the D word. People are afraid to have the discussion.
That is what our courses are all about. That's the discussion. And I've said it a lot. One of my favorite things about Dad is he always said 80 to 90% of what he said is always going to be true. The other 10 to 20%, let's have a discussion about. And people aren't having those discussions anymore. You know, and our courses, they're supposed to be an hour, the live webinars, and there's discussions are happening, these connections are being made, and they're going on for hours, you know, at a time, and I'm learning, everybody else is learning, you know, and it's really, it's a happening, which is really nice. The popcorn starts to go off, and that's how we evolve. That's how we make things happen. We got to have that discussion.
Yeah.
Not that I want to discuss these things with everybody, but
right. So. Yes, it's fun to talk at people, but no, we're interested in where people are at. You know, that's like I tell people a lot during the consultations. I don't know everything, but I think between us, we have all the answers. When we start to have the discussions, you know, different perspectives, different experiences, and then we can take action on those things, we can really learn a lot. So that's, you know, Josh and I, we created the courses for a way to be able to hang out with people.
They're very
You know,
interactive, which is the best part. We give obviously lots of great content as well, but those live webinars are where the magic really happens there. Very
that's why it's nice to be on with you guys. We've been on lots of interviews, and some people have lots of good questions and they ask, and some people say one thing and they just look at us, and Josh and I just start running with things because we can do that. But for you guys, it's nice. I wanted to ask you, Bear, what devices have you liked or things like that, So this is not just Josh and I want to be here to promote our course. We're horrible at promoting things.
We've always been really bad
Marketing.
businessmen, so it's nothing we have to work on. So yes, please sign up for our course. It's
And
awesome.
you can sign up for that course at alphavedic.com/Bigelsons.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, there's something to be said about Plato, going back to Plato, the dialectic, right? And seeking knowledge through multiple nodes of consciousness, proposing things and going back and forth. And I've liked this new term for it, dialogos. Which is a technique actually that has been developed where you do have that important conversation where you're pulling out the logos literally through the word. And yeah, that just brings us back to full circle that we aren't here alone, right? Like in the way a practitioner can help us out here and there, having those conversations with your mates is so crucial to evolving your own consciousness.
Yeah. And I got to tell you too, Mike, it's how many people in your family listening, maybe doing other things. They may not get the live experience, but they have your voice in their terrain, both of you guys. You know what I mean? It says when Anna's doing certain things, I can hear she follows a few people, and basically she's doing dishes or washing, and this other person, their information, their energy is permeating my environment.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm thrilled that you've gotten, Dr. Bear here into this environment where, we can listen to him and talk with him, and people can just have that energy permeating their environment through the voice. There's something very important there. Getting together is a whole different story. What if the first thing we should do as far as treatments is just that 30-second hug, right? Did you ever hear that one? There's something about a 30-second hug is different. And I don't know if you've ever had a 30-second hug with somebody. Depending on the person, it can be a very strange. 30 seconds can be a very long time.
We do that a lot at Music in Sky, like without even knowing. More like 15-second, 20-second hugs, but I don't know if you guys noticed when you're there. There's a lot of hugging going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's not gay.
No, it's not. It's like at the David Barbrisi, that T-shirt, free hugs, It's, wait, where's my phone? I'm a hugger. You know what I mean?
Gay as it's in happy, and we're expressing that joy for life with each other, and like how stoked we are to see each other in person, because it might have been a year since I've seen you in person, and we go heart to heart too.
Yeah.
So this idea of because a lot of people want to go one way, and I guess I don't know, maybe it's a Mandela effect, the heart's moved or whatever, but that whole heart to heart hugging is a huge part of Music in Sky, and it's you don't see that so much. Like there's no knock on these other events, but you don't quite have that hugging like you have it and Confluence will be the same way, a lot of hugging.
Yeah.
So yeah, super important. And you're feeling that vibration of that person's heart with your heart. And there's this thing going on there, right? Of energy transference. And then as you sustain that for 30 seconds, it gets quite intimate, but in a way that's really powerful. It's like staring at someone's eyes for a minute straight. Have you ever done that where you just intently stare into someone else's eyes for a minute? That's extremely intimate and difficult to do.
It's not easy. Yeah. It's not easy. Try it with yourself in the mirror too. That's an interesting one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No,
and
that's
ideally
good stuff.
not on an eighth of mushrooms. Not that I've ever done that before.
Never.
Well, guys, this has been such a fun chat. And we could go on forever, but out of respect to you guys and to my bladder, we're gonna nip it in the bud here. alphavedic.com/Bigelsons. Check it out for their new show, or excuse me, their new course. It is like a show, right? And anything else, guys, to sum up, any other links or any other places our audience can check you out at?
No, I think that, we just had Dr. Mari's isopathics course, which is really nice. I got a feeling you guys are going to sell a few more isopathics, which is cool. But no, it's at this point, Josh and I are doing our thing. We're chugging along. We're meeting people, which is fun. We look forward to hanging out with people. You know, if we get out and about, free hugs, no pressure. Josh needs a bunch of hugs.
Oh,
Don't
that's
even
true.
ask him. Just hug him.
We've got the courses, but we've got the School of Health too,
Yeah.
which is a whole $27 a month. We do an interview each month and then a Q&A live webinar as well. So it's very interactive. Then you get some other things out of it too. So that's one way you guys can interact with us. The courses are obviously a deep dive and a lot of amazing discussions, but the School of Health has some pretty awesome discussions too. I know we've had you on there several times, Bear. We've had osteopaths on there, acupuncturists. We've had regenerative farmers on there. So that's a lot of fun. You can interact with us that way. And yeah, the courses, it's just awesome. You'll feel empowered afterwards. And the way Adam has set it up is once you sign up for this course, when we give it again next year, you're welcome to attend for free. So it's always open to you, which is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, look, we're promoting. It's crazy. I hear mom in the background going, "Tell them about the books." No, I think that's about it. You know, Josh and I have a few things going on. We appreciate the support. We really appreciate when you guys share our stuff. You know, and it's funny because people will send us these ridiculous microscope videos and say, "What do you think?" and "What do you say?" And it's like, I don't want to think about that. And just go post our stuff for those people to hear.
Yes, feel free to interact with us. Do not send us microscope videos, please.
And we are selective about what we choose to share. We get hit up a lot by people doing all sorts of stuff, and I just say,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. We just put
Oh man, yeah. Like we are barraged with guests. Like in one thing that's been annoying about AI, is that now there must be some like people are using AI to to diagnose our show because I get these emails every day. I loved how you had the Bigelsons on and the deep reflections around blood and isopathy, and it's like, and wouldn't you be interested in Dr. So and so? And they're Harvard trained, blah blah, and it's this whole thing, and then they're pitching us to be on their show, and I'm just like, take us off your list, take us off all day long, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm getting hit up with those now.
Yeah, we have an email that's going out actually, just to piggyback on that, and then we can finish, is one person that wants to train with us that's been working with another person that we know a lot about. And the reality is there's going to be a lot of contradictions. So the response is, we suggest you continue on the path that you're on at this point. At a different point in time, potentially our way might be the way for you, but we're turning people away based on different things for sure. We're very picky about some of these things, and people want to be aligned with us. People want us to look at the blood before and after, they do something, and then we know they're just going to run and tell the whole world, the Bigelsen said what I do is awesome. So we don't do that. I'm learning to say, no, I believe in these things, but that's an interesting one. So I appreciate that one from you, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those who are new to this chat too, we've done 2 other shows with Adam and Josh. And the first one was a great overview of the holographic blood work and the foundation coming from their father. And they actually, it's an ancient tradition really is where I'm seeing it coming from, guys, that this has been known going back probably, thousands of years. And we lost that during the age of reason and scientism and all that, and reductionism and materialism. And so we're getting out of that mold again. We're getting back into a holistic understanding of fractal, holographic understanding of the world. And you guys have bringing that through in an amazing way through your practice and coming from what your father had discovered, what he had been taught. So check that out. The first 2 Alpha Casts, we touch on that. So if this is all like, what are they talking about with the blood? Go check that out. And definitely you can go on their website, bigelsenacademy.com to learn more about all of the work they've done, and alphavedic.com/Bigelsons. Thanks guys so much. It's been such a blast. I can't wait to see you, Adam, in person in a couple weeks. You'll be getting a 30-second hug from me, so get ready.
Awesome.
And for those interested about everything else going with Alfa Vedic, go to alphavedic.com/join-us. That's how you join our private membership group, where we have continual discussions going on in the back end. We've got our executive co-op meeting happening next week. If you want to join there, it's a wonderful Zoom meeting that Bear and I do, and we have that more intimate conversation with our community. We answer questions, and we're doing it topic-based now. So check that out, guys. Love you all. Remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something, go show Mother Nature some love. She'll show it right back to you. That's how we end every show, and there's a reason why. I'm going to get planting out there today. And one thing too is like I've been having to do a lot of tree trimming. So that's been my qigong of right now. I've been doing, and also using a scythe, is that how you say it, to cut all this growth from the spring. So I'm doing that in a way that's like it's like the Zen qigong movement. So you can actually combine in my own Western mind. I'm combining these movements with practical yard work.
Yes.
Awesome.
Awesome, Mike.
Wax
Yeah,
on.
yeah. And Bear's one was really instrumental in teaching me that back in the day, because he's like, do you have any idea how much can go into building a fence?
Yeah.
Like how much you can get out of digging a hole and putting
Oh,
a
yeah.
post in the ground? You know, it's Zen, it's
Yeah.
qigong, it's a workout, and you're building stuff on your property. So
Awesome.
you don't need a gym, guys.
No.
Anyways, love you all. We'll see you next week with Anna. Anna will be on with us next week. That'll be a great show. And thanks so much, guys, for all that you do and all that you bring to this world. And yeah, we'll have you back on again, I'm sure.
Awesome.
And we'll see you soon in the flesh.
Really appreciate
Yes.
you guys.
Yes. Thank you, guys.